Welcome to today's episode, where we're diving deep into the fascinating world of nuclear regulation. We're unpacking the intricacies of licensing nuclear installations, a topic that's not just crucial for our energy future, but also brimming with complex legal and safety considerations.
Wow, that sounds intense. I've always been curious, how exactly does one go about getting a nuclear site licensed?
Great question. It's a meticulous process governed primarily by the Nuclear Installations Act 1965, or NIA 1965. This act requires any corporate body looking to install or operate a nuclear reactor, or other prescribed nuclear installations, to obtain a nuclear site license from the Office for Nuclear Regulation, or ONR.
Okay, so the ONR is the key player here?
Exactly. The ONR administers the licensing process, which ensures that any entity operating a nuclear site meets stringent safety and security standards. It's all about protecting people and society from the potential hazards associated with nuclear activities.
Right, so what does the licensing process actually involve?
Well, it's quite comprehensive. It starts with the applicant establishing itself as a licensable organization. They need to be a corporate body, meaning they can be a company formed under the Companies Act 2006, or a statutory corporation, for example.
So they can't just be a group of individuals?
Exactly. They need a legal structure that holds responsibility. Once that's established, they have to develop organizational capability. That means having the right leadership, resources, and arrangements in place to manage nuclear safety and security effectively.
Okay, so it's not just about having the technology, but also the right people and systems.
Precisely. They need to demonstrate that they have competent staff, adequate safety management systems, and robust governance structures. This often involves creating a nuclear baseline, a detailed account of the necessary roles and competencies required to ensure safety.
Got it. And what about the site itself? How do they decide where to build?
Site selection is critical. The proposed location must meet stringent criteria regarding geological stability, environmental impact, and proximity to population centres. The aim is to minimize risks from external hazards like earthquakes or flooding.
Makes sense. So they wouldn't build a nuclear plant on a fault line or in a flood zone.
Exactly. Additionally, they need to consider the feasibility of implementing effective emergency plans, which includes assessing the surrounding infrastructure and community.
Right, so once they've got the organisational capability and the site selected, what's next?
Next is compiling the license application dossier. This includes detailed safety case submissions, security plans, emergency preparedness arrangements, and decommissioning strategies.
That's a lot of documentation.
It is, but it's essential. The safety case demonstrates that the proposed installation can be constructed, operated, and decommissioned safely. It addresses potential hazards and how they'll be managed.
Okay, and the ONR reviews all of this?
Yes, thoroughly. They assess the applicant's submissions, conduct inspections, and consult with other regulatory bodies like the environment agencies. They also consider factors like the applicant's financial standing and liability insurance arrangements.
Liability insurance for a nuclear site?
Absolutely. Under NIA 1965, licensees must have sufficient financial coverage to meet potential third-party claims in the event of a nuclear incident.
That makes sense. Got to be prepared for all scenarios.
Exactly. Now, if the applicant satisfies all the requirements, the ONR may grant the license. But the process doesn't stop there.
It doesn't?
No. Once the license is granted, the licensee enters a new phase of regulatory oversight. They must comply with the conditions attached to the license, known as license conditions or LCs.
What do these license conditions involve?
They're a set of 36 standard conditions that cover everything from safety documentation to operational procedures. They require the licensee to develop and implement adequate arrangements to ensure safety and security throughout the life of the nuclear facility.
Okay, so the ONR stays involved?
Very much so. The ONR has the authority to inspect, assess, and intervene if necessary. They can issue improvement notices, prohibition notices, and even revoke the license if the licensee fails to meet the required standards.
Wow, that's serious stuff.
Indeed. It's a rigorous regime designed to maintain the highest levels of safety and security.
Speaking of security, how do they ensure that nuclear materials are protected?
That's governed by the Nuclear Industry Security Regulations 2003, or NISR 2003. Licensees must develop comprehensive security plans that address physical protection, cybersecurity, and personnel vetting.
There's a lot more to this than I realised.
There is. Additionally, the Nuclear Safeguards, EU Exit Regulations 2019, or NSR 19, ensure that the UK meets its international obligations not to use nuclear materials for nuclear explosive purposes.
So safeguards on top of security?
Exactly. Safeguards involve nuclear material accountancy and control measures. Licensees must maintain accurate records and report to the ONR's Safeguards subdivision.
Right. And what about emergencies? How prepared do they have to be?
Emergency preparedness is crucial. Under the Radiation, Emergency Preparedness and Public Information, Regulations 2019, or REPIR 19, licensees must develop detailed emergency plans, including on-site and off-site response arrangements.
So they have to coordinate with local authorities?
Yes, they must collaborate with local authorities, emergency services, and public health bodies to ensure an effective response in the unlikely event of a radiation emergency.
That's reassuring.
Absolutely. The overarching goal is to protect workers, the public, and the environment.
What happens when a nuclear site reaches the end of its life? Is there a process for that?
Definitely. Decommissioning and delicensing are integral parts of the life cycle. The licensee must develop decommissioning strategies and demonstrate that the site can be safely cleaned up.
And the ONR oversees this as well?
Yes, along with the environment agencies. The site can't be delicensed until the ONR is satisfied there's no danger from ionizing radiation.
I see. So the responsibility doesn't end when the plant stops operating?
Correct. The licensee remains responsible until the site has been fully decommissioned and delicensed.
This is incredibly comprehensive.
It has to be. We're dealing with powerful technology that, while offering significant benefits, requires meticulous management to ensure safety.
Right. It's reassuring to know there's such a robust framework in place.
Indeed, and it's a constantly evolving landscape. Take small modular reactors, or SMRs, for example. These new technologies are prompting updates to regulatory approaches.
Oh, I've heard about SMRs. They're like mini nuclear reactors, right?
Exactly. They're designed to be more efficient and cost-effective. While they don't have a specific legal definition under NIA 1965 yet, the ONR is adapting to regulate these advanced nuclear technologies appropriately.
That's exciting, but I imagine it adds complexity to the licensing process.
It does, but the fundamental principles of safety and security remain the same. The regulatory framework is flexible enough to accommodate new technologies while ensuring that standards are not compromised.
Got it. So what's the key takeaway from all of this?
The key takeaway is that licensing nuclear installations is a rigorous, comprehensive process designed to maintain the highest levels of safety and security. It's about ensuring that only qualified, capable organizations operate nuclear facilities and that they're managed responsibly throughout their entire life cycle.
That's impressive. I have a whole new appreciation for the work that goes into nuclear regulation.
I'm glad to hear that. It's a complex field, but an essential one for our society.
Absolutely. Well, this has been incredibly enlightening.
I'm pleased you found it informative.
Thank you for breaking it down so clearly.
My pleasure.
And thanks to all our listeners for joining us on this deep dive into the world of nuclear licensing.
Yes, thank you for tuning in. We hope you've gained valuable insights.
See you in the next one.